Hey guys, Adam Fenig here with Fenig Equipment. You're tuned into the Talking Shed. Hey, over the years you guys have heard us talk a lot about row cleaners and residue management and how important that is on the planter. We've talked a lot about the no-till coulter and removing that no-till coulter. So I want to really focus in on this object and this subject right now and talk to you about why we like to remove the no-till coulter and what the residue managers can do in place of that no-till coulter. Because the no-till coulter is bolted rigid to your row unit, any rock or soft spot or hard spot that you hit, that no-till coulter is the first thing that's going to feel it, and then it is going to direct that force to the row unit. So if you hit a rock, it's going to bounce up. If you hit a soft spot with springs, it's the first one to go down. So it also creates a lot of uneven ride on your planter. So as you can imagine, as it's hitting rocks, soft spots, it's going to jostle, and it has control over that row unit because it's bolted rigid to it. It cannot float. There's no give in that no-till coulter other than your parallel linkage arms. So it has control over your seed depth and placement. So not only does it do that, but it robs a lot of your down pressure. When you think about it, the no-till coulter was originally designed to help the planter go in the ground. The problem is it actually doesn't do that at all. It does the opposite, because the more blades that the springs or your airbag or your delta force has to put in the ground, the harder it's going to have to push. If you put 5 no-till coulters out here, it would have to push even harder because we have to get all those blades in the ground. And whenever you have another coulter blade out here, that force has to be shared between your seed disc openers and the no-till coulter. You remove the no-till coulter, all of the force is put on your seed disc openers, allowing your planter to penetrate easier with less down pressure. So not only do we have those two benefits, but a big one is also hairpinning. If that no-till coulter gets dull, it will no longer cut the residue. It'll simply shove the residue down into the seed slot, and then you will be planting your seed right on top of corn or soybean residue that's hairpinned down into the soil right around your seed. What that does is it creates diseases, but it also eliminates good seed to soil contact for your seed. So it can create a lot of issues. We find that we have a much better ride with the planter by removing the no-till coulter and putting a floating row cleaner. The difference is if these row cleaners hit a rock or need to float up, they have give, and the force is not directed up to the unit, and your seed can maintain steady if these are out here floating. Aside from that, people will ask me, well, why do I need residue managers? Well, whether it's the closing system, your fertilizer system, or just simply your seed germination, everything's going to work better when we're working with clean dirt. And if you're a minimum till or a no tillage guy, you're not going to have really a clean seed bed from tillage. We're going to do it with the residue managers. And all they do is just move the corn residue or the soybean residue out of the way. They allow you to get good seed to soil contact, and they allow your closing wheel system to do a much better job. Now, once the planter has already drove by and passed, you are still getting huge benefits from the row cleaners. You're going to get a warming effect in that zone. If it's slightly wet out, it's going to dry it out a little bit better, and it's going to allow that seed to come up much easier when a row cleaner has ran through that. So we push row cleaners pretty hard. We feel extremely strong about them, and I think there's a lot of benefits to them. We've got all types of options, from the shark tooth wheel to the finger wheel and everything in between. There's several different versions of row cleaners. But if you're running a no-till coulter today, whether it's on your soybean planter or your corn planter, I really urge you to look at a row cleaner option and give us a call to talk through what we feel it could do for you. If you're running a bean planter, a 1790 or something like that, row cleaners are a must. They allow that planter to plant into heavy corn residue, cut back your soybean population because your emergence is going to increase with row cleaners and the correct closing wheel out the back. So that's what we're doing today. Give us a call, and thanks for tuning in.